one.
Well, we know trig can make it triggered. However, we're here to simplify it for you. So, state the common, everyone knows this, but state the Sobotoa equation, the classic.
This reminds me of English.
This, divided into 3 parts, is something everyone knows, or everyone will learn when they first are introduced to trigonometry. We're here to simplify it, you guys. So, this means sine, which is abbreviated sin, theta,
Ain't a sin to do sine.
which is what we denote the angles. Why did you have to do that? Okay. Is equal to the opposite side of the angle. Alright. Over the hypotenuse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get hyped! Alright. And then cosine cos.
Don't worry,
of
it ain't
theta.
cos.
Nope. Is equal to A over H. What's A over H again? It's the adjacent side to the angle. Notice that if this were a Cartesian plane, this would be on the x-axis and this would be on the y-axis. And then tangents, well, we're just going to call it tan. It's summer here. Everyone's here to get tanned.
Just don't get tanned the color of this whiteboard.
Yeah. If you were the color of this whiteboard, you'd get burnt, not tanned. And that's equal to the opposite side over A. Well, it's a simple fact here. We can rewrite all of this as well. Well, we're going to rewrite only sine and cosine. We're going to rewrite this into sine theta H is equal to O. So,
Even
in
how to
ancient
underline
days, if you knew something like the H, if you knew like a side, but you didn't know how to define it according to the Earth, you know, the Earth is, when you look at it, it's 2D. Well, it's not 2D, but it's perpendicular to the
it.
ground.
Make sure to look up the earth if you are.
And if you had something traveling in any direction, you needed to define it somehow. And that's how you find the Y component, or the vertical component of something that's moving on the Earth. So, opposite can also be equal to sine theta H. And then, when you have vertical, you also need something horizontal to be defined. So, cosine theta H would be equal to this part, the X component, the horizontal, the groundly, the Gaia, the Mother Earth component, if you will. And then, of course,
It's like tic-tac-toe.
tan, although it's opposite of adjacent, tangent. Wrote it out
Oh,
here.
you're gonna write tan.
Tangent is just sine over cosine.
And that's your first identity, which is a funny word for a rule of math.
Okay, we're gonna give you a unit circle time. Pretend as if H disappeared. What if H was 1? What if H was 1? Well, we're gonna show you what happens when H is 1. Go.
Hey guys, I'm so excited to learn trigonometry. Ah!
This guy was excited to learn trigonometry. Well, I pulled the trigger on him.
Now I'm triggered.
Besides Sokotoa, we're gonna introduce the unit circle for you to understand trig better. It's all revolving around these 2 special triangles here. You may be wondering why you have pi, or why do you have these fancy little squiggly things here? Well, that's what we call radians. Maybe you're used to seeing degrees. Well, here's a simple conversion. 2 pi is equal to 360 degrees, or one circle, and 1 pi is simply 180 degrees. Here we have 45 degrees and 45 degrees and 90 degrees, so it's just pi over 4. And here we have 30 degrees and 60 degrees, and that's pi over 6 and pi over 3 respectively. And then with the sides, so here in the isosceles triangle, we have 1, 1, but then according to the Pythagorean theorem, which means the two non-hypotenuse sides squared added up is equal to the square.
This Greek guy found.
Yeah, these two sides that are freaking non-hypotenuse and are squared, well, they equal to the hypotenuse squared. So 1 squared plus 2 squared, with 1 squared plus 1 squared is equal to 2. And then the square root would be the hypotenuse. Here, 1 squared and square root of 3 squared added up is 4, and the square root of 4 is 2. Good job. I'm saying good job. But here we have the unit circle, and by the way, every triangle we're going to draw here will extend from this origin, and it's going to touch the circle. For example, let's draw something here.
So imagine it to be a slice of pizza.
This would be a triangle, right? And we're going to have an angle here. The hypotenuse, if you must agree, will be this here. And since it's touching the rim and every single radii is 1, hypotenuse is going to equal to 1. Remember when we said that sine theta h is equal to O? Well, h is just 1. So here, sine theta is just going to equal to O, which is
and
this
O
side
refers
here.
to the opposite side.
Exactly. And then this will just be A, like adjacent. Remember last time? Well, cosine theta h is equal to A. 1 cosine squared theta is just equal to B. It's going to be A. And then you're wondering, well, what does this have to do with these special triangles? Well, we're going to teach you the values of each of these things, because those are the most common in math. Not even in trig, just in math in general. So we're just going to pretend that this is 30 degrees, or pi
over 6.
over 6. Well, pi over 6 is here, and the hypotenuse is 2. Well, what happens if the hypotenuse is 1? Oh.
Ooh, we do a bit of dividing.
Yeah.
I hope that's right.
Yeah, it is right. However, 1 over 2, the opposite will be equal to 1 over 2. Oh my god. Okay.
You can see how this side is shorter.
And you can see how this is approximately half. However, A will be equal to pi over square root 3 over 2.
This is an ugly number if you put in your calculator.
Yeah. And these will actually essentially work for all of these. 30 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees, 45 degrees, and then on this side as well, and in the other 3 quadrants. However, notice that there are negatives. Therefore, we have to follow something called the cast rule. The cast rule, well, it's written counterclockwise and it starts here. The cast rule simply means that in whatever quadrant you're in, the letter denotes which one will be positive. So, I forgot which quadrant this was, but in the bottom right quadrant, cosine will always be positive because the x values here are positive. And in the upper rightmost quadrant, all of them will be positive because the x values are positive and the y values are positive. Here, only sine values will be positive. But that makes sense as well because the y values are positive, the x values are negative. And here, where both of them are negative, well, we told you previously that the tangent was simply sine over cosine. And a negative over negative will become a positive. And that's how tangent is positive. Okay, that's good.
Shiva.
So, since we know Nerf guns are not accurate, I'm going to stand behind and I'll shoot at the center. And whatever quadrant it lands on, well, not quadrant, but whatever
Piece of
pie
pie.
slice, yeah, it lands on, I'll just immediately do the sine and cosine for that. Pretend everything's 1, of course.
Don't miss.
Okay,
I
so
didn't see that.
I got here, and I was closest to 3 pi over 1. And, okay, value here is -1, so the sine would be -1.
Sine of 3
Pi over 2 is -1. And then cosine, well, that's the x value here, and that's just 0.
The temperature it takes to freeze water.
Is 0. Goose egg. Celsius, of course, not Fahrenheit.
And what's tan?
Well, tan is simply sine over cosine, and there's 0. That's kind of a problem. I think that means it's undefined.
It's undefined.
It's undefined.
We don't tread water.
We don't treat water at, yeah, exactly.